Listen closely, for this tale begins on a quiet yet fateful decision, one that would shake the throne of Rain Country itself. Before returning home, Ling Han had made a detour. He sought out the Rain Emperor and spoke to him directly, revealing a matter that could no longer remain hidden. After hearing Ling Han's intentions, the old emperor gave his consent. A letter was written then and there, bearing the authority of the Rain Emperor himself. Ling Han was entrusted with it, tasked with delivering the message to Qi Changyue and ensuring the young ruler cooperated. But the truth was simple. When the heavens themselves were to be split open, the feelings of a mortal emperor mattered little. Whether Qi Changyue welcomed it or not, the throne would soon change hands. With that settled, Ling Han set off alone. Behind him, his companions began packing their belongings, preparing for another relocation. After all, if Ling Han truly ascended the imperial throne in the future, the Ling family would naturally reside within the imperial palace. To Ling Han now, the lands of the desolate north felt pitifully small. He moved like lightning across the earth. His figure streaked through the sky as if he were a bolt of thunder itself, crossing mountains and rivers in the blink of an eye. Not even half a day had passed before the borders of Rain Country appeared beneath him. Soon after, he descended directly upon the imperial palace. No disguises, no concealment. He simply walked in. Naturally, such arrogance could not go unanswered. What audacity! Someone dares to intrude into the imperial palace. Kill him! The palace guards rushed forward like a wave of steel, weapons drawn, murderous intent blazing in their eyes. But before their blades could even swing, "Pa! Pa!" one after another, the soldiers collapsed to the ground, their faces turned pale. Their bodies trembled uncontrollably. Ling Han had not lifted a finger. He had merely allowed a trace of his aura to leak outward. Yet this faint pressure came from a cultivator who stood at the very peak of the spiritual infant tier. Its might was overwhelming. Compared to Ling Han's current presence, even the terrifying spiritual infant tier decree once wielded by Feng Yan seemed insignificant. For ordinary guards, the pressure alone was enough to crush their spirits. At that moment, an elderly man stepped forward from deeper within the palace. "Sir, this is the Rain Country Imperial Palace." The old man stood firm beneath Ling Han's aura. He was a spiritual pedestal tier cultivator, clearly a martial arts grandmaster. Without such strength, he would have already been forced to kneel. Ling Han smiled faintly. "I am here to see Qi Changyu." The old man's face twisted in fury. "How insolent! To speak His Imperial Majesty's name so casually. This is treason!" Ling Han chuckled softly. "Are you stalling for time? Waiting for the old Rain Emperor to appear?" His divine sense quietly swept the palace grounds. Then he shook his head. "You will be disappointed. That old emperor is already at death's door. Forget coming out to fight. He likely cannot even survive 3 more days." "Nonsense!" the old man roared. "The old emperor is protected by the fortune of our nation and divine techniques. Your slander cannot shake my faith." Ling Han's smile widened. "Is that so?" He extended his hand. His origin power surged outward, condensing into an enormous invisible palm that reached deep into the palace. Moments later, boom! A thunderous crash echoed across the palace grounds. Shouts erupted everywhere. "Oh no! His Imperial Majesty has been abducted!" The defensive array collapsed in one strike. A giant hand broke through the formation and seized His Majesty. "Where is the old Emperor? Hurry! Summon him!" Chaos swept through the palace like a storm. Guards, eunuchs, and servants ran in panic. Then, crash! The roof above Ling Han shattered. From the broken ceiling descended a massive hand formed from pure origin power. Within its grasp was a young man dressed in imperial robes, Qi Changyu, the current Rain Emperor. The spiritual pedestal elder stood frozen in disbelief. What kind of power was this? Ling Han had not moved an inch. Yet he had reached across the palace, shattered a flower blossom tier grand array, and captured the Emperor in a single motion. Even a flower blossom tier expert would require time to break such a formation. But this man had destroyed it instantly. Just how terrifying was his strength? Meanwhile, Qi Changyue stared at Ling Han. For a brief moment, fear flashed across his face. Then recognition dawned. "Grandmaster! Ling?" The panic vanished almost immediately. Ling Han released him gently. "It's not easy to see you these days." Qi Changyu laughed heartily, forcing the calm dignity expected of a ruler. Grandmaster Ling jests. Years upon the throne had given him the bearing of an emperor. At least on the surface he appeared composed, but the faint trembling in his legs betrayed the truth. The shock he had just experienced was far from minor. Ling Han waved his hand dismissively. "Let's set that aside. The old Rain Emperor's situation is not looking good." Qi Changyu's expression immediately changed. The realization struck him like a thunderbolt. So much time had passed since the commotion began, yet the old emperor had not appeared. That could only mean something was terribly wrong. In the next instant, Ling Han vanished, lightning flashed. Then he returned just as quickly. In his hand was a frail old man. The figure looked like a withered tree trunk. His body was tall, but shockingly thin, weighing barely 25 kilograms. "Senior Elder!" Qi Changyu cried out. "Old Emperor!" the spiritual pedestal cultivator shouted in horror. If they had not seen him before, they might never have believed this skeletal figure was once the mighty Rain Emperor. Ling Han shook his head. "Well, this really is unfortunate." Then he reached into his storage ring and pulled out something astonishing, a ginseng root as thick as a child's arm. Purple veins ran along its surface, radiating profound Dao energy, dragon blood tyrant ginseng. A heavenly treasure recently harvested from Ling Han's Black Tower. Ironically, the first person to taste it would be the old Rain Emperor. The old man's lifespan had long been exhausted. Over the years, he had consumed countless spirit herbs to prolong his life. Ordinary 1,000-year ginseng would no longer help him. The only path forward was breakthrough. With the power of the nation supporting him, the old emperor possessed the strength of the flower blossom tier. But it was false. He had never truly stepped into that realm. If he could genuinely reach the flower blossom tier, he could seize another 50 years of life from fate itself, using dragon blood tyrant ginseng to grant a flower blossom cultivator 50 extra years. If others learned of this, they would surely curse Ling Han for wasting such a divine treasure. But Ling Han didn't care. Spirit herbs? He had plenty. What could anyone do about it? A furnace appeared. Flames rose. Ling Han began refining the medicine. Although dragon blood tyrant ginseng could be eaten raw, the old emperor's body was far too weak. Consuming it directly would cause him to explode instantly. The medicinal power had to be tempered first. Nearly half a day passed. Finally, Ling Han produced a pill. Without ceremony, he forced open the old emperor's mouth and shoved the pill inside, guiding it down with origin power. The effect was immediate. Dragon blood tyrant ginseng was a treasure even heaven tier experts coveted. It could help them break into the shattering void tier. Helping someone step into the flower blossom, that was child's play. The old emperor's eyes snapped open. He glanced once at Ling Han. Then he shot into the sky. His breakthrough had begun. Remaining in the palace would destroy everything around him. High above the capital, the power of heaven and earth gathered. For years, the old emperor had relied on the nation's fortune to simulate flower blossom cultivation. His understanding of the realm was already complete. The divine seed within him had been planted long ago, now nourished by the dragon blood tyrant ginseng. It sprouted, it grew, it blossomed, the flower blossom tier. Ha! The old emperor's laughter thundered across the sky. His shriveled body began to change. Muscles strengthened, his back straightened, even his dull hair regained vitality. Moments later, he descended gracefully before Ling Han. With great respect, he cupped his hands. "Young friend, I owe you my life." He was now a genuine flower blossom tier cultivator, and with the support of the nation's fortune, his combat power might even reach the peak of that realm. Ling Han smiled calmly. Then he said something unexpected. "I suspect the next words I say will make you want to stab me with a sword." In the quiet chamber of the imperial residence, tension hung in the air like mist before a storm. "How could such a thing be possible?" the old Rain Emperor exclaimed, waving his hands vigorously as though trying to sweep the accusation from existence itself. His voice carried both dignity and stubborn pride. "I have never been one to forget a debt." He paused, his aged eyes narrowing slightly. "Previously, I may have appeared as if I were already dead, but that was merely because my strength had waned to the point of helplessness. My body was weak, yet my awareness remained. I knew everything that happened around me." Ling Han did not argue. Instead, he calmly withdrew the letter that had been entrusted to him by the current Rain Emperor. Without ceremony, he placed the handwritten document into the hands of Qi Chang Yue. The young emperor accepted it almost reflexively. For a moment, he simply stared at the paper, his mind blank, as if his thoughts had been swept away by a sudden gust of wind. Then realization dawned. This letter was meant for him to read. The old Rain Emperor stepped closer. Side by side, the elder and the young monarch lowered their gazes and read the message with solemn focus. Moments later, their calm composure shattered. "My imperial father has broken through to the spiritual infant tier!" Qi Changyue's voice trembled with astonishment. The old Rain Emperor burst into laughter, his eyes gleaming with excitement. "I knew it. Hai Chao's talent surpasses all who came before him. Truly, he has opened the path to unprecedented glory for our Qi clan." The two men could hardly contain their exhilaration. A cultivator at the spiritual infant tier was no trivial figure. In the vast lands of the desolate north, such a person stood at the peak of power. Even across the entire northern region, a figure of that level would command respect and recognition. Yet their joy lasted only a short while. As their eyes moved further down the letter, the colour drained from their faces. The Rain Emperor intended to abdicate the throne. And not only that, he wished to pass the imperial crown to Ling Han. The letter offered no elaborate explanation, no reasoning befitting such a monumental decision. It merely stated that the Qi clan would understand the wisdom of this choice in the future. The two readers exchanged stunned glances. This was not a simple matter like appointing a noble title. This concerned the very throne of the Rain country. Silence filled the chamber as hesitation crept into their hearts. The imperial throne was the lifeblood of the Qi clan. It represented their legacy, their authority, and the foundation upon which their power had stood for generations. Even if their clan temporarily lacked exceptional geniuses, the resources of the entire nation could still nurture cultivators to the spiritual pedestal tier. With the power of the nation backing them, they could even produce warriors capable of wielding strength comparable to the flower blossom tier. That foundation had ensured the continued rule of the Qi clan for countless years. But now, they were being asked to hand the throne over to someone else. Would this not signal the beginning of their decline? If the Rain Emperor himself were present, things might be different. His personality was forceful, and now he had ascended to the spiritual infant tier. Faced with such overwhelming authority, even the old Rain Emperor and Qi Changyue would not dare openly oppose him. But this was merely a letter. Its persuasive power was far weaker. Ling Han observed their expressions and spoke calmly. "The Rain Emperor is my sworn elder brother. The decisions between brothers naturally have their reasons. You only need to follow what we have decided." His tone remained steady, as if discussing something trivial. "To be honest, Rain Country itself holds little importance to me. I merely find it convenient that there is already an established army here. The power of a nation must be gathered through the framework of a nation. Otherwise, such a small place would never attract my attention." He paused briefly, then continued as if reciting a grand plan that had long been etched into his mind. "Unify the entire desolate north. Second, conquer the northern region. Third, bring the 4 great regions under one ruler. And afterward, join forces with the Purple Moon Empire of the Middle State to cut the cake." The room fell into stunned silence. The old Rain Emperor and Qi Changyue nearly fainted on the spot. Unifying all 4 regions of the world was already an ambition so grand it bordered on madness. And yet, the ultimate purpose was merely to join another empire and cut a cake? What kind of absurd ambition was this? Ling Han clearly had no interest in explaining further. He turned to Qi Changyue and said plainly, "Prepare to abdicate." Then he added with a casual wave of his hand, "This time consider it a senior bullying a junior. Naturally, there will be compensation." The air suddenly shimmered. A cascade of items appeared across the table, alchemical pills, cultivation manuals, and martial technique scrolls spreading out like a field of priceless treasures. Before arriving here, Ling Han had already prepared everything. Qi Changyu and the old Rain Emperor stared at the table, then their eyes widened. Heaven-grade cultivation technique! And it's complete. All 9 layers are intact. Cultivating this could lead directly to the Heaven Tier. Heavens, there is even a heaven-grade martial arts technique. And this pill... This is an Earth-grade alchemical pill. Their voices rose in shock as their expressions twisted with disbelief. Some treasures were priceless, but there were treasures that surpassed even the value of a nation itself. Heaven-grade cultivation techniques, heaven-grade martial arts, Earth-grade pills. Yet these unimaginable treasures now lay scattered across the table as casually as pebbles. The value of these items alone could easily purchase the entire Rain Country. If the Qi clan possessed such resources, then, even after countless generations, once a true genius appeared in their clan and reached the Heaven Tier, they could conquer 100 or even 10,000 Rain Countries. After their shock gradually subsided, the two men suddenly realized something. Ling Han had disappeared. The room was empty. Qi Changyu swallowed nervously before turning to the elder beside him. "Elder, what should we do?" Since the decision involved the imperial throne itself, only the strongest member of the Qi clan could determine the outcome. The old Rain Emperor did not hesitate. "Abdicate immediately," he declared firmly. A man capable of casually producing such treasures without the slightest hesitation clearly possessed unimaginable wealth and power. Without strength, how could anyone dare give away such priceless items? The old Rain Emperor was indeed ambitious and greedy, but he also understood one crucial truth. Some opportunities were not meant to be grasped. Attempting to seize them would only lead to ruin. Meanwhile, Ling Han had already returned to the Ling clan residence. With a thought, he gathered everyone into the Black Tower before travelling back to Rain Country once again. Soon, figures began appearing one after another: Zhu Xuan, the Li siblings, Yuan Chenghe, and many others. Among them were even more terrifying presences: the Rock Spirit and Helian Xunshui. One stood at the deity transformation tier, while the other had already stepped into the Heaven Tier. The sheer pressure emanating from these individuals was enough to suffocate the air itself. The old Rain Emperor's heart trembled violently. At that moment, he felt overwhelming relief that he had not entertained any foolish thoughts earlier. Any one of these people could crush him with ease. He hurriedly urged Qi Changyue to proceed with the abdication as quickly as possible. If delays caused Ling Han to suspect deception, the consequences could be disastrous. After all, Ling Han's earlier words had not been an exaggeration. With his power, he could easily conquer the entire northern region. Rain Country itself was insignificant. Even though Qi Changyue fully cooperated, abdication was far from simple. The process involved ministers, noble clans, and countless political forces. Ling Han was not interested in ruling a hollow kingdom in name alone. What he wanted was a true nation, one whose people were loyal, allowing him to wield the power of the nation itself. Thus, he began to act. Yuan Cheng, he and the others were dispatched into the military. Their task was twofold. First, they would win the loyalty of the army. Second, they would retrain the soldiers according to the military methods of the Purple Moon Empire. During their journey here, Ling Han had already passed these methods on to Yuan Chenghe, Li Fengyu, and the others. The principles were simple: discipline, cooperation, courage. Meanwhile, Qi Changyue worked tirelessly to persuade the ministers and the 8 great clans of the imperial city. In truth, persuasion proved unnecessary. Ling Han simply sent the Rock Spirit to stroll through the city once. That single appearance was enough to terrify everyone into obedience. Half a month later, the grand ceremony finally began. Before the gathered officials and nobles, Qi Changyue formally abdicated the throne. Ling Han stepped forward and inherited the crown. The nation was renamed. From that day onward, the Rain Country became the Great Ling Dynasty. Ling Han wasted no time. He immediately appointed Yuan Chenghe and Li Fengyu as generals, granting each command of a powerful army. Their mission was clear: march forth and conquer the remaining 8 kingdoms of the desolate north. However, Ling Han's command was strict. This war was meant to conquer, not to slaughter. Unnecessary destruction must be avoided. With commanders at the peak of the spiritual infant tier and the flower blossom tier, their armies advanced like unstoppable tides. Within a single month, the 8 surrounding nations were utterly defeated. Even when they attempted to form an allied resistance, it proved meaningless. White flags rose across the land as surrender followed surrender. Amid these victories, Ling Han felt the pressure of his cultivation growing impossible to restrain. Originally, he had planned to suppress his breakthrough for longer. His progress was already astonishingly fast. But now suppression was no longer possible. Thus, he stepped forward into the next realm, the deity transformation tier. At this stage, the spiritual infant within a cultivator's body would transform into a divine form, a deity born within oneself. For Ling Han, the process was effortless. In his previous life, he had already crossed this threshold. Now, with immense accumulated power and unparalleled experience, the breakthrough occurred as smoothly as flowing water. And now, I have reached the deity transformation tier. Ling Han sighed softly. Originally, he had expected that returning to the heaven tier might take until his 30s in this new life, but judging by his current progress, that might happen within only 1 or 2 more years. The martial arts environment of this era was simply too favourable, and he possessed the Black Tower, a treasure capable of endlessly providing cultivation resources. Combined with his identity as the Alchemy Emperor, his cultivation speed far surpassed even that of his previous life. Ling Han lifted his gaze toward the distant horizon. The next step, his voice was calm, yet filled with quiet determination, is to launch a campaign across the entire northern region.